I have to be quite honest, this is actually the first Metal Slug game I've ever played. I knew the series existed and it looked amazing. I just never got my hands on any of the games until now. I remember back around 2005 when I saw an ad for Metal Slug Advanced in an issue of Nintendo Power, and younger me thought it looked awesome. A few years ago I actually saw Metal Slug 2 being run on a real Neo Geo in a pizza place, but I had no money at the time to play it, and I sadly had to watch the demo screen loop instead. The closest I got to playing the Metal Slug games for a while was quite a few years ago when I played a Metal Slug clone on miniclip.com called Commando 2. There were 3 of the Commando games, and I really dug the first 2 when I was younger, and getting some footage for this video, they do not hold up well at all. The first one is pretty darn unplayable, but for younger me, these were a treat. The second one I have the most nostalgia for, but even that can't save the game. There was a third one, but I never got around to playing it back then. They are free to play games, and I'll link them down in the description below if you want to check them out. Anyway, I should really get into the main focus of what this review is about. Metal Slug 4 is a run-and-gun arcade game that almost didn't actually exist. See, the original developers SNK went into bankruptcy, and the third game of the series was supposed to be the last. Thankfully though, a Korean company by the name of Mega Enterprise still owned the rights to be able to put a few of SNK's games into South Korean arcades, which included Metal Slug, since it was incredibly popular over there in South Korea. With said popularity, ME decided to acquire the ability to make their own Metal Slug game. Since ME didn't have all the means to make a Metal Slug game on their own, they teamed up with the Japanese company Sound Factory. Sound Factory had previously worked on Metal Slug 3 and were able to make Metal Slug 4's soundtrack while also helping with programming and game concepts. The game cost around $400,000 to make, and after production finished, it was finally shipped out to South Korean arcades. Metal Slug 4 is the only game to be made during SNK's period of bankruptcy, as Metal Slug 5 was back in the hands of a resurrected SNK under the name of SNK Playmore. Metal Slug 4 was originally released for Neo Geo in 2002. I own the compilation of 4 and 5 from Sony's PlayStation 2, and this was released in May of 2005. There is also an original Xbox port, but I don't own that and it isn't backwards compatible, so I'll be taking a look and talking about the PS2 port at this time. Now, I usually like talking about the game's story first, but seeing as this was an arcade game, that is going to be kind of hard. Now, thankfully included in the manual of the game, there is a less than half a page look at the storyline, but if I want to get anywhere, I'm going to have to use the Metal Slug wiki alongside what I'm given in the box. The story takes place after the events of Metal Slug 3 and 6, with our heroes of the Merc Group PF having to face a group of cyber terrorists by the name of Amadeus, who are threatening the world with a computer virus titled White Baby. You, and if you're playing co-op with another friend, must put a stop to their evil plans. There are 4 playable characters in the game: Marco Rossi, the face and mascot of Metal Slug and the group leader, my Metal Slug waifu, Fio Germi, a daughter of a wealthy Italian businessman and the game's best girl, Nadia Kasi, a character unique to Metal Slug 4, who is Fio's younger rival, and finally Trevor Spacey, the computer specialist and what I assume is ME's South Korean badass insert. You can choose from all 4 of them, but other than a cosmetic change for a few in-game events, there's no advantages or disadvantages for playing as any of the other characters. Since Fio is best girl, I'm going to be playing as her throughout the footage. One of my only gripes with this game is that it only supports 2 players, even though the PS2 is capable of supporting 4 players. It isn't a huge deal, and it doesn't detract from the game in really any major way, but I just found it kind of disappointing not having the ability to play with 3 of my friends, and thought I should mention it. Right off the bat, you'll notice this game looks fantastic. Every sprite is wonderfully animated, and no matter how much on-screen chaos there was, I could tell what was happening at all times. It's also over the top and fun to look at that it really is a treat for my eyes. When I think of good-looking arcade games, this will certainly come to mind. Levels are well varied and quite unique, with different enemy types and designs for each stage. Going from jungles to snow-covered mountains to post-apocalyptic cities, there was a lot of care put into preventing the game from getting repetitive in its visuals. I really like that. My favorite stage would have to be the zombie-infested city, as it has an 80s B-movie horror feel to it. Everything just oozes charm, and I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Even though the enemy ground troops share a basic design, they all had something to differentiate themselves from other troops on screen. Bosses all had interesting designs to them, and I like seeing what the next level would have to offer. The sound was okay, but other than the now famous sound clip for picking up the rocket launcher and shrieks of enemies when they are blown to bits, none of the game's music really stood out or comes to my mind. It isn't bad, but I wouldn't call it memorable. Thankfully, unlike with a lot of other arcade games, I never found any of the sounds annoying. Weapons, enemies, and everything else just sounded good. While there are only a few types of weapons to use, I loved every second I got my hands on them. From heavy machine guns to dual-wielding Uzis, they were all a literal blast to use against enemy forces. You get weapon pickups by saving POWs who will drop all sorts of goodies for you to use. Now, I both like and dislike the one-hit kill system you have, as it gives the game challenge but makes pickups and weapons you get go away way too quickly. It's a good incentive to get good at the game so you can stay alive long enough to use them, but if you're like me, you might find yourself using the limited continues a bit too much during boss battles, as every time you respawn you get a fresh batch of grenades. Thankfully, unlike the arcade game, there are unlimited continues, with the only thing you have to keep doing is hit the start button. Oh, and when you respawn, the game is nice enough to let you choose who you want to play as and gives you a weapon power-up. The whole game feels so fluid. It's just so well controlled. If you press a button, you are going to do exactly what you intended to do. If you press the square button, you are going to shoot. If you press the X button, you are going to jump. Even though the game has arcade difficulty, it never really felt cheap. Anytime I died, it was my fault. It was challenging, but oh so addictive, and I wanted to see the game all the way through. Enemies were fun to fight, and I liked seeing what each stage had to offer, from basic enemy forces and enemy metal slugs to even sci-fi enemies like yetis and zombies. There were just so many things to do battle with. Now I should talk about what the game series is named after, and that is the game's vehicles known as Metal Slugs. There's a good variety of them in game, and they all feel and look different enough that any time I found one, I was excited to use it. Tanks to missile trucks to weird dog horse mechs, there were quite a few to pilot. You also get normal vehicles like motorcycles and flatbed trucks throughout the game as well. Now while there isn't a big or very grand ending, I thought what the game provided was cute enough and I didn't feel disappointed for finishing the game. I was able to beat the game in under an hour, but I also had unlimited continues which helped me get through the game. There are plenty of options to play around with, and when you beat the game, you can go back and visit any stage you want. Not to mention there are multiple pathways you can take which lead to different parts of the level. There is plenty of replay value here, and it is even better if you have a friend to play along with. I really like Metal Slug 4, and as my introduction to the series, I can safely say this made me a fan. Now I've heard other people say there isn't much in terms of new content in this one compared to the last few games, but honestly, if that is true, I don't mind. It is endlessly addictive, incredibly fun, and just a good time waiting to be had. It's a great port of the game and was definitely worth my time. I can't recommend this game enough to you, especially if you're looking to getting into the franchise. It's a heck of a lot of fun, and even more so if you have a friend along for the journey. So that's my review of Metal Slug 4. Next time on the show, we'll be taking a look at Metal Slug 5 and the comeback of SNK. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Thierry Williamson signing off until the next video. See you guys!